The call came before I could dial. I was standing beside a weathered wooden rail on the Maine coast, one hand gripping my phone, the other pressed against my stomach like I could hold myself together from the outside. Grant's black SUV had already disappeared down the road, the same road that curved below the overlook and vanished behind a shoulder of rock. I had just decided to call the sheriff when my screen lit up with Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. And for one stupid second, I thought my husband had reported me first. The man on the line used my full name. Careful and flat, the way people sound when they already know something terrible and need you to catch up. Are you the wife of Grant Pritchard, owner of a black SUV with main plates ending in 47D? I looked down toward the lower road, where a family near the rail had gone quiet after pointing at the bend. My mouth went dry before I answered. Yes, that is my husband's car, and he just left me here. A woman in a fleece jacket touched my elbow. Not hard, just enough to remind me I had a body. Her husband whispered that the same SUV had blown past them too fast, and their teenage son added there was a woman in the passenger seat wearing a blue raincoat. I knew that coat before my mind wanted to know it, because Brielle Carter had posted it that morning near the harbor with a coffee cup and a caption about a fresh start. The deputy said there had been a crash on the closed coastal section below us, and 2 people were inside the vehicle. For a moment, the wind took every sound except my breathing. Grant had made me breakfast that morning, after 7 years of never touching a skillet before noon, and he had called the trip a chance to reconnect. He had kissed my cheek at the overlook, said he forgot the camera bag, then driven away with the woman he had sworn was only from work. I looked at the road where he should have come back, and understood that I was alive because he needed me outside the car. The couple in the silver Subaru drove me down from the overlook because my legs had started obeying everyone except me. At the sheriff's office, I sat in a room that smelled like paper, coffee, and wet wool, with my hands wrapped around water I could not drink. A deputy placed a yellow pad between us and asked if Grant and I had argued before he left the rail. I kept my voice, even because I knew what panic did to a statement, and answered there had been no fight anyone could hear. I gave him only what I could prove. Grant had driven me to the overlook, parked where people could see us, kissed my cheek, and claimed he had left a camera bag in the SUV. He walked back alone, got in, and drove away while I stood by the railing waiting for him to turn around. His phone went straight to voicemail after that, and when I tried again, it was off. The deputy watched me like he expected tears to make the story easier to hold. I had none left in the right place, only a cold line running through me. The same line I felt at work when a claim looked clean until one receipt ruined it. I told him about the family who saw the SUV below, the closed road sign, and the blue raincoat in the passenger seat. I did not say Brielle's name yet, because a name without proof becomes a feeling, and feelings are where people bury facts. My sister arrived after dark, hair half pinned up, coat over pajamas, and put both hands around my face before whispering that I did not have to explain myself tonight. In the motel, while she sat on the second bed with her shoes still on, I opened my laptop and wrote the day in order. Breakfast, cologne, phone face down, reconnect, overlook, camera bag, road closure, blue raincoat. Then Diane Pritchard called, and before she asked if I was hurt, she asked whether Grant's laptop was with me. Grant's funeral felt less like a goodbye than a room everyone wanted cleaned before the smell settled. Diane Pritchard sat in the front row with a black handkerchief folded perfectly in her lap, crying whenever someone bent close enough to see. Between those careful sobs, her eyes kept finding me with no water in them at all. I stood beside the guest book, still wearing the dress my sister had zipped because my hands would not work, and watched people say he loved you like love had been in the car with him. Cole Pritchard reached me before the service started. A folder tucked under one arm like grief came with tabs. "We need to talk before things get confusing," he murmured. guiding me toward the hallway while Diane pretended not to watch. The top page showed Grant's name, a beneficiary notice, and a typed will that looked too clean for a family 4 days into a death. "Mom is listed where it matters," Cole said, "and the condo should stay with the Pritchards. But we will give you time to find somewhere." I looked at that folder and felt something colder than fear settle into place. A grieving brother does not bring property papers to a widow before the flowers have even started dying. I knew enough about surviving spouses and probate to know his confidence was worth less than the paper he kept flashing at me. But I let my voice shrink and whispered, "I cannot think about this right now," because Cole needed to believe I was softer than the truth. That night, I called a probate lawyer from the motel bathroom while my sister slept in the other room with the light on. "Do not sign anything," she said. "Do not leave your home. Do not hand over a device. And put every demand in writing." By morning, her notice had frozen the estate long enough to make Diane's gentle threats useless. When I went back to the condo, the lock still worked, but Grant's desk drawer hung open, and the laptop Diane had asked about was already in my bag. I opened Grant's laptop at my sister's kitchen table because the condo no longer felt like a place where truth could breathe. I was not looking for love notes. Not at first. Because betrayal was already sitting in a blue raincoat at the bottom of that cliff. I looked for receipts, service confirmations, calendar alerts, and saved passwords that still trusted the wrong hands. By sunrise, the cleanest thing in Grant's life was the thing that bothered me most. A vehicle maintenance email he had archived but not deleted. The SUV had always gone to the dealership near our condo, the kind of place that sent reminders and called me Mrs. Pritchard even when Grant handled the keys. 3 weeks before the trip, he had moved it to a garage I had never heard of, 40 minutes inland and nowhere near his route to work. I stared at the confirmation until the numbers stopped being numbers and became behavior. A husband hiding a woman might delete messages, but a man hiding a vehicle problem still leaves a paper trail. My lawyer gave me Ruth Calder's name that afternoon, and Ruth listened over diner coffee without softening the facts for me. "Who booked the appointment? Who paid? And who picked it up?" she asked, tapping the table once for each question. I said Grant's email confirmed the booking, but the service record came back with a pickup signature that did not match his. Ruth turned the page toward me, and Cole Pritchard's name sat there in black ink, plain enough to make my stomach go quiet. The crash report arrived through the proper request 2 days later, and I read it the way I read every suspicious claim, slowly, once for the words and once for what the words tried not to say. It noted a delayed brake issue, the kind that would not announce itself in a driveway, but could matter when a driver trusted a road too much. Brielle's restored message showed Grant had told her to meet him after the overlook, so she knew I was being left behind, but not what had been waiting under the hood. That was when the shape changed, because Grant had planned to leave me stranded, and someone else had touched the SUV before the marriage fell apart. The garage sat 40 minutes inland, behind a tire shop and a diner that still had Christmas lights in the window. Ruth walked in beside me with the service record folded once in her hand, calm enough to make the place feel smaller. The man behind the counter looked at the paper before he looked at us, and that was the first wrong thing he did. I asked if he remembered Grant Pritchard's black SUV, and he rubbed his thumb along the register tape like the answer might be printed there. "We work on a lot of cars," he muttered. But Ruth laid the pickup slip flat and pointed at Cole's signature without raising her voice. "This one left here, then went off a closed coastal road with 2 people inside," she said. "So try again." His face changed around the mouth. Not enough for a stranger, but enough for a woman who had spent years watching people lie on claim calls. He said he only did what customers approved, then corrected himself and said he only did what was written down. I felt my hands go cold, but I kept them on the counter where he could see they were empty. 2 people are dead, and I was left on that overlook before the car reached the curve. I told him, "So do not answer me like this is an oil change." The radio behind him kept playing low, some old country song about leaving, and nobody in that room looked toward it. Ruth said cooperation now made him a witness, while waiting for a warrant made him a man standing between investigators and a fatal vehicle. He did not confess everything, but he gave away enough. Cole had brought the SUV in, paid cash, and told him not to send reminders to Grant's shared email because the family was handling it. By the next afternoon, the detective had the garage owner on record. The insurance carrier had paused the large claim, and Diane's lawyerly softness stopped sounding so soft. When Brielle's restored message confirmed Grant planned to pick her up after leaving me at the Overlook, the story finally split clean open. My husband had planned my humiliation, and his family had turned his escape into their payday. The money did not explain everything, but it explained why Diane and Cole moved like people racing a door before it closed. Grant's laptop held policy notices, scanned forms, calendar reminders, and an email from an agent asking whether he still wanted to update beneficiary information before the next billing cycle. He had started preparing to leave me, just not cleanly enough and not fast enough. The man who kissed my cheek at the Overlook had already been building a life outside our marriage, but he died before he finished moving the paperwork to match it. I read through the files twice, first as a wife, then as the woman who had spent years catching lies in neat folders. If Grant divorced me, the condo, the SUV, and his piece of the family tour company would not simply stay where Diane wanted them. Everything built during the marriage would have to be named, valued, argued over, and exposed. If Grant died first, while old beneficiary lines still favored his mother, and Cole could wave that typed will at me, they thought grief would do what law would not. I did not mistake Grant for innocent, because other people had worse hands. He had left me on a cliff and driven toward Brielle, with my life reduced to an inconvenience behind him. Brielle had known enough to wait after the Overlook, enough to be part of the humiliation, even if she did not know what was wrong with the SUV. But Diane's first question had been about the laptop, and Cole's signature sat on the last service pickup, so their sadness had receipts attached to it. Cole started calling after the insurance claim paused. First polite, then sharp enough to cut through voicemail. "The laptop belongs to the family," he snapped one night, "and you do not understand what you are dragging us into." I kept my phone on the table, recording like my lawyer told me, and answered that I was only holding what had my husband's name on it. When Cole told me to meet him near the old garage after closing, I sent the recording to the detective, and he called back with a voice so calm it made the room colder. I went to the old garage with an empty bag and the detective's instructions folded into the rhythm of my breathing. Ruth waited where I could not see her, and two unmarked cars sat beyond the side lot with their lights off. I was not brave walking across that cracked pavement, not in the way people like to imagine. I was careful, and by then, careful was the only kind of courage I trusted. Cole stood under the weak security light near the closed bay door, pale and restless, his jacket zipped wrong like he had dressed while running out of himself. "Give it to me," he said as soon as I stepped close, his eyes dropping to the bag in my hand. I kept my fingers loose around the strap and asked if he meant Grant's laptop or the story he thought was still inside it. His face tightened, and he hissed that I had no idea what I was doing to his family. I let the silence sit long enough for him to hear himself breathing. Did Diane know Brielle would be in the SUV? Or did you two only count on Grant not coming back? The question hit him harder than shouting could have, because it was built from Cole's signature, Brielle's message, and the garage owner's statement. He stepped toward me and snapped that Brielle was not supposed to be there, that Grant was the one tearing everything apart, that his mother only wanted to stop him before he ruined the company and the house. The bag was empty, but Cole kept staring at it like it held a judge, a jury, and every lie he had left. He reached for the strap, and the lot filled with doors opening, shoes on gravel, and a detective's voice telling him to put his hands where they could see them. Cole froze with his mouth open, finally understanding that the laptop was never coming to him because the truth already had. As they took him past me, he looked less like a grieving brother than a man who had mistaken panic for a plan. No one kept what they tried to take, and the first honest ending came without a speech from me. Grant's story changed because the witness statements, Brielle's message, and the overlooked timeline all pointed in the same direction. He had driven me there to leave me behind, not to save our marriage, not to reconnect, not to start over. The man people kept calling heartbroken had kissed my cheek, stepped into that SUV, and treated my life like something he could abandon on a shoulder. Brielle did not disappear into a rumor either. No matter how badly Diane wanted, that part kept quiet. Her phone showed she knew Grant planned to leave me at the Overlook, so that truth stayed where it belonged. It did not make her innocent, but it did make her another person caught inside the Pritchards' version of control. Cole's part had less shadow around it, because his signature, the garage owner's statement, and his own words near that closed bay door left him nowhere soft to land. Diane lost control last, and I think that hurt her more than the lawyers, the hearings, or the silence that followed her name. The claim stayed frozen, the estate moved through court instead of family pressure, and the folder she pushed at me during Grant's funeral stopped looking powerful. People who had hugged her in black began remembering what she asked first. Not whether I was hurt, not how the crash happened, but where Grant's laptop was. The tour company started losing bookings quietly, one weekend at a time, because customers forgive bad luck faster than they forgive a family hiding behind paperwork. I sold the condo after the legal dust settled, because even the walls felt trained to keep Grant's secrets. My sister helped me carry out the last box, then sat with me on the empty floor while I cried without naming which loss had finally reached me. Ruth texted when filings moved, but never asked me to turn survival into a performance. I moved to a small apartment in Portland, bought a plain kitchen table, and learned that quiet could be something I chose instead of something someone forced on me. Months later, I drove myself to another overlook, far from the first rail, and parked where I could see the road home. I locked my own car, kept the keys in my palm, and stayed only as long as I wanted. The wind was sharp, but it did not own me anymore. When I left, nobody had to come back for me, because this time I had already brought myself home.